Okay, I'm here to give you a quick introduction on Azure's Durable Function, especially the orchestration capabilities of Azure Durable Function. I hope this makes sense. What we have here, we have a Android client that basically starts the orchestration and also has the ability to then push in for approvals. How we do this is fairly simple. We have a couple of serverless functions. We have the approve, backend action, order orchestration, and start order orchestration. If I start from the bottom, here the start order orchestrator basically starts the orchestration and it passes the push notification registration ID to the order orchestrator. The order orchestrator is where the meat lies. It's where basically we express a user story as a series of yields. Each yield is calling a other activity. In this case, we call it backend activity. It can be anything, but the idea is some form of work that happens at the backend. And then we have another set of serverless that is waiting for an external event that is a approval from the user. And then we finish up the activity. I'm going to come back to this order orchestrator a bit later. The backend action is a very simple serverless that basically waits for 2 seconds and then does a push notification to the device with a new state. And finally, the approve function, which is basically raises the event. So this is an HTTP function that when you call it approves and approves for this specific orchestration ID the flow. So let's give it a quick shot. If I go back here, I'm going to put breakpoints up, 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 and up. What you're going to notice is because this here is a generator function, which means in this generator function, you yield the result. What happens is the value of this is going to be replaced within this yield before the next yield gets executed. So when we execute this code, it won't going to hit here. Then it's going to be replayed before it hits the next yield. So every time that's going to occur, I'm going to remove the breakpoint after we hit it the first time. So let's start. Let's say I start my I start my Azure function by pressing F5, and now we're running up. As you can see very quickly, we have the start orchestrator, which is a HTTP server that listens orchestration with the registration ID. We have the approve HTTP server. We have the backend action, which is triggered as an activity trigger, so you don't have any HTTP listening here. And we have the order orchestrator, which is the orchestration of the user flow. Now here we go back to the client. I start the order, so I click on do something. We land at the first yield. Okay, so we hit this part of the code that basically update the order status to received, passes the registration ID, and then sends that state back to the client. If I go like this, we should see the initial state changing to received. Okay, and it hits this again because we are in a generator function. I'm going to remove the breakpoint. So we go to the next one. We hit the next stage of the flow, let's say processing the order. So if I click and it's continued the execution, what we're going to see here, the receive is going to change to processing. And here we go. Now the next bit is fairly interesting because instead of being the orchestrator function basically pushing back information to the device, this is the other way around, in which we're waiting for a approval from the client, and this could take as much as 10 minutes, as much as it can take 1 second. But in this case, again, I'm going back here, I'm going to finish, which basically approves the order. So I click finish, it pings back the orchestrator, and it should come and execute to the next function here, which finishes the order. And finally, it should come here. We reach the end of the code. So I hope this kind of gives you a quick indication of the flow, how easy it is to express a user flow within a durable orchestrator. I found this really fascinating technology, and I hope you do too. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now.